Okay, still 31st of July, and I'm up to section 21, entitled, this is of Liber secundus, second volume in the Red Book, entitled The Magician. And this is page 312, and this same section goes all the way through page 330, the end of Liber secundus. And for this reason, I'm going to split up The Magician of 28 pages into several different sections, which I'll simply call Magician 1, Magician 2, Magician 3, so on. So this is going to be Magician 1, and it's going to go for a while. And so, yeah, handwritten draft has 10th adventure. And this is coming after the Way of the Cross. Okay, and so we're up to January 27, 1914. And I'm just checking the image. Doesn't seem that significant. And now, there's a long footnote about metamorphosis, Ovid's metamorphosis. I'm not sure if it's going to be relevant. It may be. Okay, so let's just read the section and then we'll decide. The Magician. After a long search, I found the small house in the country, fronted by a large bed of tulips. This is where Philemon, the magician, lives with his wife, Baucis. Philemon is one of those magicians who has not yet managed to banish old age, but who lives it with dignity, and his wife can only do the same. Their interests seem to have become narrow, even childish. They water their bed of tulips and tell each other about the flowers that have newly appeared, and their days fade into a pale, wavering chiaracuzo, lit up by the past, only slightly frightened of the darkness of what is to come. I will read this because it seems relevant. So this is the long footnote about metamorphosis. Ovid. Ovid tells a tale of Philemon. Philemon, I think, is how to pronounce it. Philemon and Baucis. Jupiter and Mercury wandered disguised as mortals in the hill country of Fire Phyrygia. Phrygia. I don't know. They searched for somewhere to rest, but were barred by 1,000 homes. An old couple finally took them in. The couple had been married in their cottage in their youth, grew old together, and contentedly accepted their poverty. They prepared a meal for their guests. During the meal, the couple saw that the flagon automatically refilled itself as soon as it was emptied. In honor of their guests, the couple offered to kill their sole goose. The goose took refuge with the gods, who said that it should not be killed. Jupiter and Mercury then revealed themselves and told the couple that their neighborhood would be punished, but that they would be spared. They asked the couple to climb the mountain with them. When they reached the top, the couple saw that the country surrounding their cottage had been flooded and only their cottage remained. It had been transformed into a temple with marble columns and gold roof. The gods asked what the couple would like, and Philemon replied that they would like to be their priests and serve in their shrine, and also that they could die at the same time. Their wish was granted, and as they died, they transformed into trees, side by side. Okay. And now in Goethe's Faust II, Faust II, Act 5, a wanderer who had previously been saved by them calls upon Philemon and Baucis. And now Faust was in the process of building a city on land reclaimed from the sea. Faust proceeds to tell Mephistopheles that he wants Philemon and Baucis moved. Mephistopheles and three mighty men go and burn the cottage with Philemon and Baucis in it. Faust replies that he had only intended to exchange their dwelling. And to Eckermann, Goethe recounted that my Philemon and Baucis have nothing to do with that renowned ancient couple or the tradition connected with them. I gave this couple the names merely to elevate the characters. The persons and relations are similar, and hence the use of the names has a good effect. Why should we care about this? Jung wrote in a letter to Alice Raphael on Jan 7, 1955. Yeah, ad Philemon and Baucis, a typical Goethean answer to Eckermann trying to conceal his vestiges. Philemon, where Philema equals kiss. The loving one, the simple old loving couple, close to the earth and aware of the gods, the complete opposite of the Superman Faust, product of the devil. Incidentally, in my tower at Bollingen is a hidden inscription reading Philemon Sanctuary, Fast Repentance. This was regarded as really important in the introduction to the Red Book. When I first encountered the archetype of the wise old man, the old wise man, he called himself Philemon. Um, in alchemy, Philemon and Baucis represented the artifacts, or via sapiens, and the soror mystica. Okay, and the pair in the mutus liber. Okay, and he wrote another letter to Paul Schmidt. I've taken over Faust as my heritage, and moreover as the advocate of Philemon and Baucis, who, unlike Faust the Superman, are the hosts of the gods in a ruthless and godforsaken age. Okay, there's now a different footnote about why is Philemon a magician, and it says in Psychological Types, in the course of the discussion of Faust, Jung wrote, the magician has preserved in himself a trace of primordial paganism. He possesses a nature that's still unaffected by the Christian splitting, which means he has access to the unconscious, which is still pagan, where the opposites still lie in their original naive state, beyond all sinfulness. But if assimilated into conscious life produce evil and good with the same primordial and consequently demonic force. Therefore, he's a destroyer as well as savior. This figure is therefore preeminently suited to become the symbol carrier for an attempt at unification. Yeah. Okay, so we had that first. I might just reread that brief paragraph. After a long search, I found the small house in the country, fronted by a large bed of tulips. This is where Philemon, the magician, lives with his wife Baucis. Philemon is one of those magicians who's not yet managed to banish old age, but who lives it with dignity, and his wife can only do the same. Their interests seem to have become narrow, even childish. They water their bed of tulips and tell each other about the flowers that have newly appeared, and their days fade into a pale, wavering chiaracuzo, lit up by the past, only slightly frightened of the darkness of what is to come. Why is Philemon a magician? Does he conjure up immortality for himself, a life beyond? He was probably only a magician by profession, and now he appears to be a pensioned magician who has retired from service. His desirousness and creative drive have expired, and he now enjoys his well-earned rest out of sheer incapacity, like every old man who can do nothing else than plant tulips and water his little garden. The magical rod lies in a cupboard together with the sixth and seventh books of Moses and the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus. The sixth and seventh books of Moses, in addition to the five contained in the Torah, were published in 1849 by Johann Schiebel, who claimed that they came from ancient Talmudic sources. The work is a compendium of Kabbalistic magical spells, which has been enduringly popular. And then Hermes Trismegistus, the figure of Hermes Trismegistus, was formed through the amalgamation of Hermes with the Egyptian god Thoth in the Hermetic Corpus, a collection of largely alchemical and magical texts dating from the early Christian era, but initially thought to be much older, was ascribed to him. Right. We know that from McKenna and others. Okay. Yes, the magical rod lies in the cupboard together with the sixth and seventh books of Moses and the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus. Philemon is old and has become somewhat feeble-minded. He still murmurs a few magical spells for the well-being of bewitched cattle in return to some petty cash or a gift for the kitchen. But it is uncertain if these spells are still correct and whether he understands their meaning. It is also clear that it hardly matters what he murmurs, as the cattle might also get well on their own. There goes old Philemon in the garden, bent, with a watering can in his shaking hand. Baucis stands at the kitchen window and looks at him calmly and impassively. She has already seen this image 1,000 times, somewhat more infirm every time, feebler, seeing it a little less well every time, since her eyesight gradually has become weaker. In Goethe's Faust, Philemon speaks of his declining powers. Quote, older, I could not lend a hand to the building of the dike, as once I did full well, and with my powers ebbing, the waters were pushed back. Okay, it goes on. I stand at the garden gate. They have not noticed the stranger. Philemon, old magician, how are you? I call out to him. He does not hear me, seeming to be stone deaf. I follow him and take his arm. He turns and greets me awkwardly and trembling. He has a white beard and thin white hair and a wrinkled face, and there appears to be something about this face. His eyes are grey and old, and something in them is strange. One would like to say alive. I am well, stranger, he says, but what are you doing here? I. People tell me that you understand the black art. I'm interested in that. Will you tell me about it? He. What should I tell you about? There's nothing to tell. I. Don't be ill-natured, old man. I want to learn. He. You are certainly more learned than I. What could I teach you? I. Do not be mean. I certainly don't intend to become your competitor. I'm just curious to know what you're up to and what magic you are performing. He. What do you want? In the past, I've helped people here and here and there who have been sick and disadvantaged. I. What exactly did you do? I mean he. Well, I did it quite simply with sympathy. Old man, that word sounds comical and ambiguous. He. How so? It could mean that you help people either by expressing compassion or by superstitious, sympathetic means. He. Well, surely it would have been both. I. And that's all there was to your magic? He. There was more. What was it? Tell me. He. That is none of your business. You are impertinent and meddlesome. I. Please don't take my curiosity badly. Recently, I heard something about magic that awakened my interest in this bygone practice, and then I came to you because I heard that you understand the black art. If magic was still taught today at university, I would have studied it there, but the last college of magic was closed long ago. Today, no professor knows anything anymore about magic. So do not be sensitive and miserly, but tell me a bit about your art. Surely you don't want to take your secrets with you to the grave, do you? He, well, all you will do is laugh anyway, so why should I tell you anything? It would be better if everything were buried with me. It can always be rediscovered later. It will never be lost to humanity, since magic is reborn with each and every one of us. What do you mean? Do you believe that magic is really inborn in man? He, if I could, I would say yes, of course it is, but you will find this laughable. No, this time I will not laugh because I have often wondered about the fact that all peoples in all times and in all places have the same magical customs. As you can see, I've already thought along similar lines. What do you make of magic? To put it plainly, nothing or very little. It appears to me that magic is one of the vain tools of men inferior to nature. I can detect no other tangible meaning in magic. He, your professors probably also know just as much. Yes, but what do you know about it? I prefer not to say. Don't be so secretive, old man. Otherwise, I must assume that you know no more than I do. Take it as you please. Your answer suggests that you most definitely understand more about it than others. Comical fellow, how stubborn you are. But what I like about you is that your reason does not deter you. That's actually the case. Whenever I want to learn and understand something, I leave my so-called reason at home and give whatever it is that I'm trying to understand the benefit of the doubt. I've learned this gradually because nowadays the world of science is full of scary examples of the opposite. In which case you could do very well for yourself. I hope so. Now let us not stray from magic. Why are you so determined about learning more about magic if you claim that you've left your reason at home? Or would you not consider consistency part of reason? I do. I see, or rather, it seems as if you are quite an adept sophist who skillfully leads me around the house and back to the door. It seems that way to you because you judge everything from the standpoint of your intellect. If you forsake reason for a while, you will also give up consistency. That's a difficult test. But if I want to be adept at some point, I suppose I ought to submit to your request. All right, I'm listening. What do you want to hear? You're not going to draw me out. I'm simply waiting for whatever you're going to say. And what if I say nothing? Well, then I'll withdraw somewhat embarrassed and think that Fleeman is at the very least a shrewd fox who definitely would have something to teach me. With this, my boy, you have learned something about magic. I'll have to chew on this. I must admit that this is somewhat surprising. I had imagined magic as being somewhat different. Well, this shows you how little you understand about magic and how incorrect your notion of it is. If this should be the case, or that's how it is, then I must confess that I approached the problem completely incorrectly. I gather from what you are saying that these matters do not follow ordinary understanding. Nor does magic. But you have not deterred me at all. On the contrary, I'm burning to hear even more. What I know up to now is essentially negative. With this, you have recognized a second main point. Above all, you must know that magic is the negative of what one can know. That too, my dear Philemon, is a piece of knowledge that is hard to digest and causes me no small pain. The negative of what one can know? I suppose you mean that it cannot be known, don't you? This exhausts my understanding. That is the third point that you must note as essential, namely that there is nothing for you to understand. That there is nothing for you to understand. Aye. Well, I must confess that that is new and strange. So nothing at all about magic can be understood? He. Exactly. Magic happens to be precisely everything that eludes comprehension. Aye. But then how the devil is one to teach and learn magic? He. Magic is neither to be taught nor learned. It's foolish that you want to learn magic. Aye. But then magic is nothing but deception. He. Watch out, you've started reasoning again. Aye. It's difficult to exist without reason. He. And that is exactly how difficult magic is. Aye. Well, in that case, it's hard work. I conclude that it is an inescapable condition for the adept that he completely unlearns his reason. I conclude that it is an inescapable condition for the adept that he completely unlearns his reason. I'm afraid that is what it amounts to. Aye, ye gods, this is serious. Not as serious as you think. Reason declines with old age, since it is an essential counterpart of the drives, which are much more intense in youth than in old age. Have you ever seen young magicians? Aye, no, the magician is proverbially old. You're right. You see, I'm right. You see, I'm right. Aye. But then the prospects of the adept are bad. He must wait until old age to experience the mysteries of magic. If he gives up his reason before then, he can already experience something useful sooner. Aye, that seems to me to be a dangerous experiment. One cannot give up reason without further ado. Nor can one simply become a magician. Aye, you laid damnable snares. What do you want, such as magic? Aye, old devil, you make me envious of unreasoning old age. Well, a youth who wants to be an old man. And why? He wants to learn magic and yet dares not to, for the sake of his youth. Aye, you spread a terrible net, old trapper. Perhaps you should still wait a few years with magic, until your hair has gone grey and your reason has slackened somewhat. I don't want to listen to your scorn. Stupidly enough, I got caught up in your yarn. I can't make sense of you. But stupidity would perhaps be progress on the way to magic. Aye. Incidentally, what on earth do you intend to achieve with your magic? I am alive, as you see. Aye. Other old men are, too. Yes, but have you seen how? Aye. Well, admittedly, it was not a pleasant sight. Incidentally, time has left its mark on you, too. I know. Aye. So, what gives you the advantage? It doesn't exactly meet the eye. Aye. What kind of advantage doesn't meet the eye? I call that magic. Aye, you're moving in a vicious circle. May the devil get the better of you. Well, that's not the advantage of magic. Not even the devil gets the better of me. You're beginning to understand magic, so I must assume that you have a good aptitude for it. Aye, thank you, Philemon. That is enough. I feel dizzy. Goodbye. I leave the small garden and walk down the street. People are standing around in groups and glancing at me furtively. I hear them whispering behind my back. Look, there he goes, old Philemon's student. He spoke a long time with the old man. He has learned something. He knows the mysteries. If only I could do what he is able to do. Be quiet, you damned fools, I want to call out to them, but I cannot, since I do not know whether I have actually learned anything. And because I remain silent, they are even more convinced that I have received the black art from Philemon. And there's now a section of commentary going. It is an error to believe that there are magical practices that one can learn. One cannot understand magic. One can only understand what accords with reason. Magic accords with unreason, which one cannot understand. The world accords not only with reason, but also with unreason. But just as one employs reason to make sense of the world, in that what is reasonable about it approaches reason, a lack of understanding also accords with unreason. This meeting is magical and eludes comprehension. Magical understanding is what one calls non-comprehension. Everything that works magically is incomprehensible, and the incomprehensible often works magically. One calls incomprehensible workings magical. The magical always surrounds me, always involves me. It opens spaces that have no doors and leads out into the open where there is no exit. The magical is good and evil, and neither good and evil. Magic is dangerous, since what accords with unreason confuses, allures, and provokes. and I am always its first victim. Where reason abides, one needs no magic. Hence our time no longer needs magic. Only those without reason needed it to replace their lack of reason. But it is thoroughly unreasonable to bring together what suits reason with magic, since they have nothing to do with one another. Both become spoiled through being brought together. Therefore, all those lacking reason, quite rightly, fall into superfluity and disregard. A rational man of this time will therefore never use magic. In Psychological Types, Jung wrote, reason can only give one equilibrium if one's reason is already an equilibrating organ. As a rule, man needs the opposite of his actual condition to force him to find his place in the middle. Okay. It goes on. But it is another thing for whoever has opened the chaos in himself. We will need magic to be able to receive or invoke the messenger and the communication of the incomprehensible. We recognized that the world comprises reason and unreason. We also understood that our way needs not only reason but also unreason. This distinction is arbitrary and depends upon the level of comprehension. But one can be certain that the greater part of the world eludes our understanding. We must value the incomprehensible and unreasonable equally, although they are not necessarily equal in themselves. A part of the incomprehensible, however, is only presently incomprehensible and might already concur with reason tomorrow. But as long as one does not understand it, it remains unreasonable. Insofar as the incomprehensible accords with reason, one may try to think it with success, but insofar as it is unreasonable, one needs magical practices to open it up. Insofar as the incomprehensible accords with reason, one may try to think it with success. But insofar as it is unreasonable, one needs magical practices to open it up. The practice of magic consists in making what is not understood understandable in an incomprehensible manner. The magical way is not arbitrary, since that would be understandable, but it arises from incomprehensible grounds. Besides, to speak of grounds is incorrect, since grounds concur with reason. Nor can one speak of the groundless, since hardly anything further can be said about this. The magical way arises by itself. If one opens up chaos, magic also arises. One can teach the way that leads to chaos, but one cannot teach magic. One can only remain silent about this, which seems to be the best apprenticeship. This view is confusing, but this is what magic is like. Where reason establishes order and clarity, magic causes disarray and a lack of clarity. Draft continues. Magical practice hence falls into two parts. First, developing an understanding of chaos, and second, translating the essence into what can be understood. One indeed needs reason for the magical translation of the not understood into the understandable, since only by means of reason can the understandable be created. No one can say how to use reason, but it does arise if one tries to express only what an opening of chaos means. No one can say how to use reason, but it does arise if one tries to express only what an opening of chaos means. Draft continues. Reason takes up only a very small share of magic. This will offend you. Age and experience are needed. The rash desirousness and fear of youth, as well as its necessary virtuousness, disturb the secret interplay of God and the devil. You are then all too easily torn to one side or the other, blinded and paralyzed. Okay. Magic is a way of living. If one has done one's best to steer the chariot, then one notices that a greater other is actually steering it, then magical operation takes place. One cannot say what the effect of magic will be, since no one can know it in advance, because the magical is the lawless, which occurs without rules and by chance, so to speak. But the condition is that one totally accepts it and does not reject it, in order to transfer everything to the growth of the tree. Stupidity, too, is part of this, which everyone has a great deal of, and also tastelessness, which is possibly the greatest nuisance. Thus, a certain solitude and isolation are inescapable conditions of life for the well-being of oneself and of the other. Otherwise, one cannot sufficiently be oneself. A certain slowness of life, which is like a standstill, will be unavoidable. The uncertainty of such a life will most probably be its greatest burden, but still I must unite the two conflicting powers of my soul and keep them together in a true marriage until the end of my life, since the magician is called Philemon and his wife. Baucus. I hold together what Christ has kept apart in himself and through his example in others. Since the more the one half of my being strives toward the good, the more the other half journeys to hell. When the month of the twins had ended, the men said to their shadows, "You are I." Since they had previously had their spirit around them as a second person. Thus the two became one, and through this collision the formidable broke out, precisely that spring of precisely that spring of consciousness that one calls culture, and which lasted until the time of Christ. This reference is to the astrological conception of the Platonic month, or aeon, of Pisces, which is based on the precession of the equinoxes. Each Platonic month consists of one zodiacal sign and lasts approximately 2,300 years. Jung discusses the symbolism attached to this in Ion. He notes that around 7 BC, there was a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, representing a union of extreme opposites, which would place the birth of Christ under Pisces. Pisces, Latin for fishes, is known as the sign of the fish and is often represented by two fish swimming in opposite directions. On the Platonic months, see Alice Howell, Jungian synchronicity in astrological signs and ages. Jung started studying astrology in 1911 in the course of his study of mythology and learned to cast horoscopes. In terms of Jung's sources for the history of astrology, he cited Auguste Boucher-Leclerc's L'Astrologie grecque on 9 occasions in his later work. Incredible. Anyway, so as we were saying, it's just I'm just about to finish. When the month of the twins had ended, the men said to their shadows, "You are I," since they had previously had their spirit around them as a second person. Thus the two became one, and through this collision, the formidable broke out, precisely that spring of consciousness that one calls culture, and which lasted until the time of Christ. But the fish indicated the moment when what was unified. But the fish indicated the moment when what was united split, according to the eternal law of contrasts, into an underworld and upper world. If the power of growth begins to cease, then the united falls into its opposites. Christ sent what is beneath to hell, since it strives toward the good. That had to be. But the separated cannot remain separated forever. It will be united again, and the month of the fish will soon be over. This refers to the end of the Platonic month of Pisces and the beginning of the Platonic month of Aquarius. The precise dating of this is uncertain. In Aeon, Jung noted, quote, "Astrologically, the beginning of the next Aeon, according to the starting point you select, falls between AD 2000 and 2200. Quite. It goes on, "We suspect and understand that growth needs both, and hence we keep good and evil close together. Because we know that too far into the good means the same as too far into evil. We keep them both together." In Ion, Jung wrote, quote, if as seems probable, the Aeon of the fishes is ruled by the archetypal motif of the hostile brothers, then the approach of the next Platonic month, namely Aquarius, will consolate the problem of the union of opposites. It will then no longer be possible to write off evil as a mere privatio boni. Its real existence will have to be recognized. Last paragraph. But we thus lose direction, and things no longer flow from the mountain to the valley, but grow quietly from the valley to the mountain. That which we can no longer prevent or hide is our fruit. The flowing stream becomes a lake and an ocean that has no outlet, unless its water rises to the sky as steam and falls from the clouds as rain. While the sea is death, it is also the place of rising. Such is Philemon, who tends his garden. Our hands have been tied, and each must sit quietly in his place. He rises invisibly and falls as rain on distant lands. Draft continues. The hibernal rains began with Christ. He taught mankind the way to heaven. We teach the way to earth. Hence nothing has been removed from the gospel, but only added to it. The water on the ground is no cloud, which should rain. Only pregnant women can give birth, not those who have yet to conceive. The draft continues. Our striving focused on sagacity and intellectual superiority, and we hence developed all our cleverness. But the extraordinary extent of stupidity inherent in all men was disregarded and denied. But if we accept the other in us, we also evoke the particular stupidity of our nature. Stupidity is one of man's strange hobby horses. There is something divine about it, and yet something of the megalomania of the world, which is why stupidity is really large. It keeps away everything that could induce us to intelligence. It leaves everything not understood, which is not naturally supposed to demand understanding. This particular stupidity occurs in thought and in life. Somewhat deaf, somewhat blind, it brings about necessary fate and keeps from us the virtuousness coupled with rationality. It is what separates and isolates the mixed seeds of life, affording us thus with a clear view of good and evil, and of what is reasonable and what not. But many people are logical in their lack of reason. So I'm going to call that Magician 1, or which section is it? It is going to be section 21 in Liber secundus, second volume of the Red Book. Okay.